And we are live. I will do the normal thing and wait for the peeps to come on. Today we're going live with my good friend Brian Mackenzie. Hello there, Beth. I just gotta wait for him to hop on, and my girl Anna is there. Once, I almost said Brett. It's not Brett. Once Brian hops on, then I'll invite him into. Here he is. Boom, boom, boom. It's happening. It's happening. It's happening. Hello, Erica. Hello, Corinne. There he is. I see you, Brian.
Hi, Shanti.
Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can. I'm going to just turn it up just a little bit. And perfect. I got us recording, so I should be able to save this, and then we'll go from there. Thanks for taking the time, my dude. I know you're really busy, so thank you. I appreciate you.
I am not busy at 5:30 p.m.
Listen, I don't know, but you're a total lifesaver. I went for a run yesterday and almost died wearing that thing over my face, and I was like, literally texted you immediately and was like, Brian, we need to talk because I know that other people are going to start doing this, so thank you. We got a bunch of people on already, so if you just want to take the mic and let them know who you are, that would be amazing.
Who am I? I am here.
That works.
My name is obviously Brian Mackenzie. I've been in human performance for 20 years. My whole shtick when I got involved with performance was movement. And we created a paradigm shift in the endurance world by taking a skill and intensity route over volume approach. And I kind of was at the forefront of that, and along with kind of the more lower profile shoes, etc. And then I stumbled into this breathing thing as a result of actually wearing a mask, ironically, that I made fun of because I'd never worn it. And it said it was going to change altitude for me, and I'd studied altitude for probably the last 10 years. And I knew it didn't change pressure, and pressure is the variable of change for altitude, not oxygen saturation. Oxygen doesn't change, which most people don't actually understand that. They think the oxygen levels are lower at altitude. They are not. It's the pressure. So I put the mask on anyway because I had never used the mask, and I instantly sat up to take a breath when I drew a breath in, and I was like, oh, that's something interesting. And, I was somebody who, I move fairly well. I don't move as well as, maybe you or Kelly Starrett or Jen, but I move well. And that set off a chain of events for me to go back to start over and understand breathing. And in that process, I've come to the conclusion, I'm still learning, but a lot of it came to the fact that all mechanics exist based off of lung function. Anything else is secondary. There is you cannot trump. Our existence occurs because of what we need for life, which is oxygen to a large degree. We need a lot of things, but oxygen is at the forefront of our evolution. It's a 2.5 billion year energy transference mechanism, right? It's our way of moving energy. It's not we don't create energy, and a lot of us are misconceived by that notion as well. Like we think we create energy. We do not. We transfer it. We move it, and how efficient we are at moving it, and that just happens to be aerobically how efficient we are. That became the physiological side of stuff. So I looked into the mechanics, then I understood the mechanics a bit because that was easy, and then I got into the physiology, and the physiology just enamored me. But then I stumbled into a number of professors. I started getting contacted by people who were pretty intelligent in the scientific community, and they, a lot of them were neuroscientists. One by a good friend of mine, Dr. Andrew Huberman, who a lot of you all probably follow. He he and I became very close, and I started learning more about neurobiology and the setup of the brain and respiration centers and how it affects the brain, why it affects the brain, and how it all plays out. And the fact is it's all connected. And at the foundation of everything that we're doing, it is to move energy. And our way of moving energy is aerobically. Although we have a default system in place for anaerobic energy processes, what we do, that is secondary. That is a stress response, and that actually isn't a very trainable response. The higher training to that is actually developing a better tolerance to acidity in the system, which actually involves, and this comes back to your mask. Well, I'm breathing in a mask, and this really sucks. Well, it just so happens that what's going on is you're just controlling the carbon dioxide, and you're making it so you feel like you're not breathing, but you're actually probably getting more oxygen synthesized in the system. So you're actually doing more good for yourself. It's a great training stimulus. Unfortunately, our egos get involved, and we start to we get tripped up by thinking performance or numbers are dictating what we should be doing. And this is where I'm starting to now move into performance as a terrible indicator for understanding health and fitness. And I've worked with enough professional athletes at the highest level to understand that we are wonderful at suffering. We are wonderful at moving past a lot of different things. And in that, our egos get clipped up into how far I've run, how fast I've run, or how much weight I've lifted and what I've done, and that becomes the metric for change, when in essence, our system has been communicating to us the entire time a very different message as to when to progress and when to hold back. And at the root of that is carbon dioxide. It is the metabolic stress messenger of the body. So there you go. There's where I am.
I have so many questions. I'm going to just hop in real quick. You guys listening, I think a lot of you know Brian. He is a founder, operator, chief operator at Power Speed Endurance. He has a phenomenal course, The Art of Breath. It's phenomenal. It's the number one course that I recommend for those of you guys that are looking to go to an in-person thing and really learn about just how we can utilize the breath, how we can, I don't want to say manipulate, but learn how to work with it. One of the things I'd love to hop in and have you talk about is your analogy about gears. So when I talk about this, because we see a lot of yoga instructors and such are on here, and mouth breathing, nasal breathing, things like that. And I think that you have come up with a perfect, or at least I heard it from you, perfect analogy about where are we at with first gear, second gear, third gear, what kind of breathing strategies are we utilizing, and how quickly can we go between them and get back to our default state? Could you elaborate on that?
Yes. So we developed a gear system and understanding what we were doing. This was the brainchild, the beginning of Rob Wilson. So all credit to him for coming up with the idea behind the gears and really diving into it. But we established some things at the foundation of this is understanding the difference between nose breathing and mouth breathing. And there are two very different things. And it's not that they both can't happen. As you and I, when we talk, we're breathing through our mouth. But when is it necessary to breathe through my mouth? And it turns out, and we tested this extensively, and there's going to be plenty of research coming out soon enough, but we've tested this on metabolic carts. We've looked at it on Cosmeds. We've looked at it at a number of very high-level metabolic carts. There is a significant difference, regardless of intensity, to a specific point of what happens when I'm breathing through my nose and what happens when I'm breathing through my mouth. For instance, if I go walk my dog and open my mouth and breathe through my mouth, I'm using an entirely different metabolic system, because the system does not care what is going on. If there's not enough oxygen in the environment, it defaults to a faster system for use. That's the beauty in being human or being an animal, is, hey, boom, okay, I'll use sugar. I'll use more of this carbohydrate. It's easy to use. That comes at a cost after that, right? And so if it's not necessary, what can we do? Well, that was where the gearing system comes in. So the gear system is simple. It's an equal in and out, nasal only, inhale, exhale, is a completely aerobic place. You don't need to go get a metabolic cart or anything. We can tell you, we've done this so many times, that if you can maintain an equal in and out, nose only, at a fairly, not like breath of fire, right? Okay, and I'll jump up in gears here in a second, right? But an equal in and out, something like, you're talking about an aerobic, an aerobic place, and this is where the kick in the gut comes for most people, because they think what they're doing is very easy, and yet when we have them start here, they cannot perform at all where they thought they should be. From here, we go up to gear 2, which becomes a fast nasal inhale, and then it's just a relaxed exhale. Okay, that is gear 2. We're transitioning into we're needing more oxygen faster, right? We're needing more air in faster. So the demand has gone up. So we are starting to tilt the needle a little bit. Gear 3 is fast in and out. So it is, and this is all consciously done. Like we use this very consciously. That is where we're hitting our higher, we're about at a threshold, right? Meaning aerobic threshold, we're tipping point. We're now needing to exhale more air, and then it trips into gear 4, which becomes a nasal inhale, mouth exhale. This is more or less anaerobic threshold, then going into mouth breathing. Gear 5 is where we are typically fairly, we're hitting somewhat red line. Here's the really trippy experience, though, is that if you can actually maintain control of your breathing, you're going to last longer. The moment you cannot maintain breathing, and this goes for people who deal with anxiety, who are not working out, or we're talking working out. If you can't maintain your breathing, you've become what is called hypocapnic. This means you have lost control, and that is also sending off a signal to the brain. Turns out that's the same signal basically for freaking out. And that sits at the heart of who we are. And I'm out of breath. Oh my God, I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. Think about the last time you got upset and couldn't, like you had to be right about something, or you got in an argument. What do you think you were doing? You had no control of your breathing. You weren't paying attention, right? That is the same in essence as when I'm going as hard as I can in a workout and I've lost control of my breathing, and I will lose control of things.
So, Brian, for those people that are watching and, like me, are going to go and run outside, right?
Yes.
I'm very, very vigilant about this, very aware of breathing. I mean, since I typed your course however long ago.
Yes, you were one of the first people to be there.
I was like,
I greatly appreciate it.
So sitting there like, tell me everything, Brian. So I actually noticed I switched masks, buffs, and I used a thinner one, and it was much easier the second time. For those people that are going to go and run now, what do you recommend? Because as soon as you put that thing on, like for me, I'm trying to breathe through my nose. There's a thing there, so it's literally just like kind of stopping that. What is your recommendation for easing into this?
Slow down. Slow down. You're just slow down. But B, develop a higher level of CO2 tolerance. Mm-hmm. Right now, we're in a place where everybody's kind of, we're all stressed out. Look, all of our worlds have changed. This is weird. This is really, really strange. But for the last 4 years, this has been my life to a large degree. Mm-hmm. I mean, I actually left Southern California 4 years ago, moved to the middle of nowhere in Oregon, lived on 7 acres. I was like 12. I was 15 minutes from a town of 2,000 people. I spent time in isolation. understanding things. This is what my work is I go and I invest in things and I do things to understand them, and then I talk to really intelligent people about these things, and I read books and get into it, and I keep going and going and going. But I moved back to Northern California, and I love it here, but I still, my world is, I work from home, right? And so this is where I've been. And so a lot of us are getting this dose, and I remember getting whacked when I was in Oregon, like, oh my God, like, there's nobody around. Like, I'm so alone. Like, this sucks. Like, what do? I don't have anything to do. Trust the process. You will figure it out. My dogs, for instance, took 3 months before they actually learned how to hunt squirrel. I never thought they would ever figure any of this out. But they just roamed on 7 acres, and then they literally figured out how to hunt and kill squirrels. So we ended up having dead squirrels all over the property because my dogs relearned how to hunt. Like, they had no skill set up for that. You know, and it's just like we forget that we're as much a part of this as anything. And our physiology is what nature is. We are nature. We are not nature. Just because we're confined to our homes right now doesn't mean we aren't nature. Doesn't mean we aren't, like, a part of this whole ecosystem that exists on this planet. We are. We always have been. It's how in touch we are with it. And if we don't connect into what the messages are that are being signaled, it's gonna be more and more difficult in order to do this stuff. So developing a tolerance to the stress messenger buys me a gap. It buys me time. It gives me more ability to lean into more of a parasympathetic dominance, right? So Shanti, if you're going and running, and I've got you nasal breathing running, that means you're parasympathetic dominant. That means you're computing, processing everything you're doing. You can still be more creative. The moment you open that mouth, we know that you become sympathetic dominant. So everything starts to go, and there's nothing wrong with going in and going, there's a time and a place for being high focused, right? But as I get closer and closer to this phone, and I'm staring at it, and I'm on social media, guess where I'm at? Visually speaking, my visual system is telling me to high sympathetic. Time to go sympathetic. Time to turn on. This is why it's a bad idea to look at your phone while you're driving. Versus talking on the phone while you're driving, you're still parasympathetic, panoramic vision, right? And this is a lot of the work of Dr. Andrew Huberman, right? But if I've got my mouth shut, I have more control over things. And so even when I go speak or I talk, or, you know, we're having a conversation when it's my time to shut up, I'm going to breathe through my nose and I'm going to chill out because I'm going to actually listen to you and control my breathing so that I'm processing what you're asking, so I can return back to an elongated, response to, well, what can we do? And the thing is carbon dioxide is at the heart of this. Yeah. And if we can develop a higher level of CO2 tolerance, and by the way, we don't know the friggin' limits to this, especially those of us who are performance junkies. We don't know how high we can go. You can have very high levels of carbon dioxide in the system for breath control that actually will allow you to absorb more of the oxygen in the system. It's not that, like, if you and I are sitting here, it's not that either one of us has less oxygen in the system. It comes down to who's more efficient. And so if I just said, all right, Shanti, you ready? Hold your breath as long as you can. Let's go. And we both held our breath. The only reason we're taking a breath is because of carbon dioxide. Well, more than likely. If you haven't done the high-level work. I, on the other hand, have done enough work to where I'm going to have my O2 levels start to plummet after about 3 minutes. And then when about 4 or 5 minutes, that's going to get really, really low, right? And then I get critically low when I start hitting the 40 percentiles, and I'll go lights out, right? I don't take it that far, but we're so far off from actually needing oxygen in any situation that we're in, and it turns out that it's a carbon dioxide issue that is the problem. And the better relationship we have with it, the better we make in decision processing, because the brain stem is set up to detect carbon dioxide through the carotid artery and the aortic artery, all right? And so going peripheral, right? And so this means it's a predictive system. And so what's going on up in that prefrontal cortex, all that thinking, that monkey brain. So this is Emily Hightower from Intrinsic talks about this. But the monkey brain, when we start to lose it here, all of that starts to send signals down system, right? And it suppresses my ability to tolerate the stress messenger. So now I have to overbreathe. So I have to feel easy. I have to feel at ease, right? But that overbreathing is setting me off to not absorb as much oxygen because I actually need carbon dioxide molecules on that red blood cell in order for the oxygen molecule to come off. But I'm not providing that. So the system says, no problem. Let's go dip into the sugar a little bit more, and we'll just keep you riding here. And then I can't. And then I wonder why I can't sleep, right? Oh, it turns out I'm sympathetic most of the day, and I'm overthinking, and I'm not. My nervous system in the last 7 years has completely changed. So it's all interconnected. And so whether the brain's here or the body's going hard, it doesn't matter. It's what am I in control of? And I have this thing that's in control that's telling me exactly in any moment what's happening. So the breath practice becomes paramount. So the best thing we can do is start a simple breath practice. We've got a breath calculator that's free. It's linked in my bio. And you can do a CO2 tolerance test. On that test, you can plug in your number and you can get 7 different protocols you could play with. Those protocols are by design off of that test there to help you increase CO2 tolerance. Just spend 10 breath cycles doing one of those things. See how it makes you feel. And allow it to progress. Then retake the test, input the number, do it again. Retake the test, and there's your performance indicator.
Love it. One of the best things that Brian has said to me in one of those courses or at some point was that, we have this this affinity for wearables. Like I have a Whoop band, but I like the numbers and things like that. But what Brian said, and I love, is that we have a wearable right here, the best wearable of it. As soon as you switch, as soon as we go from nasal breathing to mouth breathing, we have that indication we've switched systems. You tapped into, and I'm going to ask you to talk about it a little bit more, CO2 tolerance. So that's at the heart of everything. Could you go a little bit deeper into that and just kind of explain to the people whatever you want, Brian. I'm going to just flip it over like that.
Yeah. So CO2 tolerance is critical to understand. And I'll give you the basic, then I'll go in intermediate, all right? The basic is that you've got this stress messenger that is there to make oxygen available. I could go into the history of this, but like 2.5 billion years ago, everything switched. The mostly carbon dioxide environment became, over millions of years, primarily oxygen, or 21% oxygen, right? That in and of itself began where multicellular organisms decided to say, hey, yo, I'll help you, you help me. Let's use this thing for oxygen, right? When we use the oxygen, the byproduct of that will be heat, energy, and water, and carbon dioxide. And so that carbon dioxide, the way it goes back out of the system is by attaching itself to a red blood cell. Okay, primarily. Some of it's diffused into the system. Some of it, there's a little bit of waste products that ooze out other places, but the bulk of it, the main reason that we have carbon dioxide is so that it comes out and we exhale it. 70% of all waste product is brought through my breath, right? Carbon dioxide is the preferred mechanism for hemoglobin. Hemoglobin would prefer to have carbon dioxide on, not oxygen. Okay? So if I don't have the stress messenger in the environment, the oxygen molecule doesn't come off the hemoglobin. So it just sits in the red blood cell. So you got 4 of those, right? Per red blood cell. And you got lots and lots of red blood cells. So from the brain standpoint, it detects it predicts what's going on through the arteries of the heart, right? And through the neck going to the brain. These are predictive mechanisms for stress, for, hey, things are rising up. We need to send a signal to the brainstem to breathe more. Let that off, right? Sigh, yawn. Oh, I'm tired, right? Yeah, you're tired. That's why you yawn. Don't try and go and figure that out any deeper. You're yawning because you're actually tired. Your body's trying to tell you something. Anyway, the brain detects how high that gets, but in essence, if I have a poor relationship with that, meaning I am a reactive person, or I'm not doing enough work around like my emotional state, right? Like, so our IQ is not something that's trainable, right? But our emotional IQ is, and it for very good reason. And that's plasticity. That is actually understanding how to really work with the brain. But that thing that we do with is we make a better relationship to the reactive system, the mechanism that's setting us off. And so that is carbon dioxide. So the basic is that it is a stress messenger, but it is responsible for making oxygen bioavailable. That intermediate process becomes, well, here's all the physiology behind it. If I don't have enough in my system and I offload it, the reason you feel high when that happens is because oxygen is a vasoconstrictor. Carbon dioxide is a vasodilator. Got somebody with COPD? You think you want them constricted or open? Right? You want them open. It turns out that if I have higher levels of carbon dioxide, I also have higher levels of nitric oxide systemically. Not even talking about the nose quite yet. Systemically, I now release nitric oxide, which is an immune system booster. It's a vasodilator as well. So carbon dioxide is also a vasodilator. Nitric oxide is a vasodilator, right? Immune system booster. All of this stuff plays a big role in how we use oxygen. And it sits at the forefront of what's going on. So then if I actually am breathing correctly, if I'm sitting here just like hanging out listening to you and I'm breathing, there's no difference in my inhale here in terms of oxygen absorption and my inhale here in terms of oxygen absorption. The difference becomes
there you go.
Here, where I exhale. And so if I'm somebody who sleeps with my mouth open, is in a bad position at work, watching TV, sitting around, I tend to do the easy thing. And this inadvertently dumps carbon dioxide. And so the system now, it's not that you're not using part of the aerobic system. You still are. It's just not as much or as efficiently, right? Like there's a reason why a free diver can hold their breath for 10 minutes and Brian can hold his for 5. They've done a lot more work at developing CO2 tolerance, right? So, and they're doing it in a very specific manner. Versus, I'm using a bunch of different other things to play with this in a, more of a general standpoint. I'm not trying to free dive, even though it's cool to do.
I'm in. So if we're going to summarize here, and I have another question for you, but if we're going to summarize here, guys, just so we're keeping up, and I'm looking at the questions as we go, big thing that Brian said there, size matters, right? So as we're looking at when it comes to the exhale, right? If we're exhaling through the nose, we're not blowing off as much carbon dioxide. If we exhale through the mouth, we're exhaling a lot more carbon dioxide, which is going to decrease our ability to gain a tolerance to that. Remember, he said, as that CO2 builds up, it triggers us to want to breathe again. That's one of the reasons we see people that are mouth breathing all day, people that mouth breathe at night, people that talk a lot like me all day. We're constantly blowing off CO2, which means we never really develop a tolerance to it. One of the reasons we look to kind of encourage just simple nasal breathing as a start, right? We can do all the tests and things like that, but simple nasal breathing as a start, when we're both inhaling and exhaling, it's going to slow things down. It's going to recruit the diaphragm a little bit more. It's going to help increase our tolerance to carbon dioxide. Someone asked a little bit earlier in the questions there about belly breathing versus diaphragmatic breathing. I personally don't like the cue of belly breathing because you have no alveoli in your belly. It's kind of It's an external cue that isn't the best, right? The biggest thing is just close your mouth, and you have to use your diaphragm to breathe. Then it will happen. We had a discussion about anxiety, which I actually would love for you to go into. And one of the reasons, again, why we want us to be utilizing nasal breathing as our default for both the inhale and exhale, and I love that he brought that up. We tend to see people that are living in more of this anxiety, this anxious state, kind of going hand in hand with mouth breathing, having not the greatest tolerance to CO2. We see this kind of self-perpetuating cycle, right? Where we're mouth breathing, we never develop a tolerance to CO2. As soon as we do anything that increases those levels of CO2, we're triggered to breathe again. So we're spending our entire day in that sympathetic state. Not the best, especially given the current state of things. 2 questions for you, Mr. Brian.
Yep.
One, because I know you had the perfect post about this the other day. People, one of the things you say is like, all right, let's work on breathing through their nose. And they'd be like, I had a broken nose. I have a deviated septum. What can you say about that? Let's see it. Look.
How's that?
It's beautiful, Brian.
That is a busted nose twice, deviated septum, and I can operate at around 96% of maximum heart rate nose only.
Here you go.
I probably am better at 90% max heart rate. 96, I'd be better. There'd be things like I'd get more benefits, right? Training benefits. There is a time and a place to switch over. There's no hall pass. If you want to optimize yourself, I am a sound mind, and I would love to be convinced otherwise, but I don't think we have biologically evolved. I think we've devolved.
Yeah,
we are a devolved species, and we continue to shove ourselves into the technology world and bow down to technology. And unfortunately, I think it has a time and a place. I think medicine has a time and a place, but I think our attachment to it has eluded us. And this even goes in through performance. Most of performances that are done today are done on technical systems and clothing and gear that has made us think something's happening that actually isn't happening. So, your fingerprint is this thing for how you use oxygen. You got your own personal fingerprint. I mean, when we look at this, like I read a lot of history, and like I'm into different cultures and things, and I've studied enough on, sociology and things to just get, minor glimpses and reality checks of how we operate. But the fact is, there's a reason why in African American culture the nose is wider, and why there are larger nostrils than my European ancestors. I dealt with cold air in my history. You did not, right? So what would benefit the other better? And this is how we start to see these things play out, right? What happened to my system? What about our jaws? Like, our jaws have actually receded and pulled back versus being, my jaw has actually changed in the last 7 years. My entire jaw, and the structures of my sinuses have as well. It wasn't a fun process, but I stuck with it, and at any rate, we're plastic all over. It's not that plasticity is not just a brain thing. This is an entire system thing, and so just understanding that the nose will actually change, but taking the time to do it will actually be of far more benefit than trying to go around it and trying to wear straps and open up my nostrils and things. Well, now I'm just getting more air in than I'm actually capable of doing. So then when I go to sleep at night, it's difficult, and I don't know why I'm breathing through my mouth still. And then if I put mouth tape on, I get all freaked out because my relationship with carbon dioxide. It's just this compounding thing.
Exactly.
What do we want? What are we trying to get, right? And if for me, it's like, look, in 2.5 years, it took me to get up to that percentage-wise, 96% max heart rate, nose-only breathing, right? Spend some time. What's your rush? Where are you going? Right?
There you go. I love what Brian's saying here about spending time with it and doing while you're awake. So someone had asked here, if you guys follow me, you know that I do mouth taping at night. Anything across the board that you're doing at night, it's because you do that when you're awake. Look to change it when you're awake. So if I ask someone or tell them, hey, think tape your mouth at night. If they have this reaction right away, I already know that they're a mouth breather. And I'm not going to tell them to tape their mouth at night. We're going to work on this throughout the day. Like Brian said, these things can and will change. We actually look at little kids and how their facial structures change. And you saw Brian in that position there where we've actually adapted and changed physiologically because this is how we've been breathing since we were little kids. So as we look to switch back to these things, but it has to be an active practice. And like Brian said, it's not something that happens overnight. He's done this. He said his facial structure has changed over 7 years and working up to 96%, over 2.5 years. So keep that in mind. I want to share a question because someone had asked in here. So that was one of the questions about breathing with your mouth at night. You shouldn't, but if you breathe with your mouth during the day, then you're going to do it at night because you're asleep.
Yeah, if you're not spending 80% or more of your day with your mouth closed, breathing, you're going to run into trouble at night. Guaranteed.
This is physiology. Remember, again, you don't have that tolerance to carbon dioxide.
That's all it is.
You don't have
it. Physiology is connected to the neurobiology. So
it's all science. You guys want to look down that rabbit hole? That ties into just the temperature of your room, right? If you don't have carbon dioxide tolerance, we have a hot room. You're going to be sympathetic, trying to cool yourself down. Carbon dioxide builds up. What are you going to do to blow that off? You're going to breathe through your mouth. So if you don't have these systems in place when you're awake, they're definitely going to happen when you're sleeping. So you're going to start training them when you're awake, which is why I brought on Brian, because again, he has a phenomenal course, a phenomenal resource with The Art of Breath. In terms of things like when you're awake, pollen, allergies, can you speak to that?
I can. If you would like to have a better experience with allergies, breathe through your nose.
A better experience.
I can't tell you how many people I've talked to, including Rob, who works with me and who I originally had mentored. His allergies completely changed through this process of our work. Anxiety, autoimmune problems. I've seen asthma go away completely. I'm not going to make claims that I'm going to change your life and this is going to solve everything for you, but I can tell you that at the forefront of everything you're doing, you need oxygen for survival. And we sit here and nutrition's $1 trillion industry, and fitness is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And, we forget that all of these things are important, but you can't actually process that food. You can't actually, the water you're taking in, that becomes secondary to the need for proper use of oxygen. And look, I've looked at so much research, and anytime research has been done around a disease and they've looked at respiration rate, you will see double, if not triple, the respiration rate in the diseased. And there's a reason. And they're blowing off CO2. It's not an oxygen problem. It's a carbon dioxide problem. And we're missing the medical community. Like I've gone and spoke at the Cleveland Clinic. I've flipped their lids, and they're open enough there to where they're like, oh wow, like I guess we just blew by this medical school. And I'm like, well, of course you did. It was so simple that it's like, why would I care about this? I'm going to specialize in this or that and that. And it's like, well, look, here's how important it is. And, it's like, we need to understand what's at the heart of our being. And the fact is look, if we were to remove your amygdala, and there are people who have a disease that, that where their amygdala doesn't function, you still have a panic switch. That panic switch is carbon dioxide setting off your system, the bells. And is it weird that still is there? No. And it turns out that there's actually people who've had, Rob just brought this up the other day, who, for some reason, people who had some disease or something wrong had to have their carotid arteries replaced, so removed. Well, detection system went out, and what happened? They were able to double their breath hold. Like that.
Yeah.
So
it makes sense. It makes total sense.
Yeah. So CO2 sets it off. CO2 becomes a thing. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. I think it answered a bunch of questions. Like, you guys, I brought Brian on for a reason. I talk about breathing all the time for a reason. We're seeing all this stuff going on. Coronavirus. We had Shara just wrote in there, Whoop actually just started tracking breath. Because if you see a spike in these things, Brian actually said this in his course. If you wake up one day and you're having a shitty day, check your breath. Bet you it's different.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, look, I mean, you could use a breath hold. You could use a breath pattern that you're used to being able to hold. The moment you can't, warming up. I'm warming up, and all of a sudden I need to breathe out of my mouth sooner. What does that mean? That means you're a little cooked.
That's it. It's very, very simple. I watch, it's not nearly as entertaining as you, but sometimes I watch dental webinars.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They're not as interesting. But, one of the points that they brought up there was that one of the things we use for people that are having trouble sleeping, they go to the CPAP machine. A CPAP machine is not a sleep machine, it's a breathing machine. We should understand this is at the heart of everything. All the stuff that's going on, all the anxiety that people are feeling now, looking to perform, any of this, central to that is going to be the breath, and central to that is going to be our tolerance to CO2. So I'm going to let you go in a few minutes, Brian, but we've got 2 more questions for you.
We're good.
One, you're feeling now, we're going to bring it back to what you said in the beginning, you're feeling on training masks.
Which training masks?
Any training mask. So some people are asking here in the comments here. They said, "What do you think about training?"
You've got a training mask on your face. Other than the fact that look, a training mask right now is perfect for not allowing, a virus to kind of get in if you're wearing the right thing. Mask. That being said, I guess they could be used for some training, but I'll tell you what, that's why I actually train, right? Like, so I have a breath practice that I do in the morning when I wake up, then I actually train. I work out, and depending on what I'm doing, whether I'm hiking, running, I'm in the gym, I'm on my bike, right? Like jiu-jitsu, like there's all of these things I do. Well, every one of those is an increase in intensity, and the faster I'm moving air through here, the more need I have for air. I'm developing my diaphragm as I'm using this. So I'm actually using and filling those upper lobes with that, which don't happen. And you can feel a big difference if you just, I fill those things up. And it turns out they're most sensitive at end ranges with that alveoli, right? So you've got a mask, you've got a training mask on your face. Learn to use it, learn to adapt with it. Breath holding on the negative, on the positive, slow controlled breathing will help you develop CO2 tolerance.
Simple.
That should be at the fundamental place, nose breathing, and that should be at your fundamental place of understanding a breath practice, right? But it's so simple. The most fundamental thing you can do for a breath practice is shut your mouth and be more aware. That's it.
It really is. Shut your mouth, save your life, right? It really is that simple. To summarize, guys, like what Brian was just saying, you have a mask already here. You have a wearable already here. Learn to shut your mouth, be cognizant of what you're doing, and breathe through the nose. Notice, understand, take note of when you have to switch systems, when you have to go, and start going out through the mouth, and then when you have to go in and out through the mouth. All right, you can use this right here. If you are going to go running right now, and you're going to wear something on your face, it's going to make it more difficult. As per what Brian said, 45 minutes ago, go slower. That's what we're going to do. Slow down. That's going to be the number one thing.
You're getting plenty of oxygen, just so we're clear. Get that. And this is behaviorally, so when we look at human behavior, behaviorally we think we're starving for, I need air, I need oxygen. You do not. That is not what's going on.
You're good. You guys should run with like a pulse ox on, and you could see you're not starving for oxygen. Your carbon dioxide is going up, and you're like, oh shit, I'm gonna die. And
that's why if you want to come spend some time with me, you can come over and we can play with all the technology, and I can show you a lot of different things.
Brian, where can they find you? Where can they get more information?
Instagram handles on here, powerspeedendurance.com. that is where most of our information is. And look, there's a bunch of links in my bio right now. There's information on resources for breath work. What I talked about with the CO2 tolerance test and the breath calculator is on the website. There's a link for that. It's free. You can go play with it. This is how, the IP that I've developed is in fingerprinting people towards specific breath protocols, right? And this is your gateway into going and playing with 7 different protocols. I used a lot more than that, but 7 different ones to figure out which ones make you feel a little more alert and calm and which ones downshift you more, right? It's good to figure that out because, at the end of the day, if you're stressed out, you got an opportunity to downshift yourself, right? Yeah. So you can go find that stuff, all links in my bio. Everything's there. So off this Instagram handle, you can find everything for Power Speed Endurance, Art of Breath, Breath Calculator. My bio and everything are in there as well.
All the things, guys. That's why I brought him on here. If you're confused, that's okay. Go and look at all the resources he gives you. Biggest thing, big take home, close your mouth. Right? We're talking about carbon dioxide tolerance, and the easiest, fastest way to start working on that is just simply close your mouth. We can start adding in breath holds and things like that, but for many people that's really overwhelming. All right, so let's just work when we're awake. Don't worry about doing it when you're sleeping, please, while you're awake. Just being a bit more cognizant. If you have a tendency to sigh a lot, things like that, that's an indication that you're not dealing so well with carbon dioxide. So let's just work on closing the mouth. And then we can go into all the resources. Brian literally has all the resources. His in-person course is the number one that I recommend. If you guys follow me, you know that I recommend this time and time again. So please, I tried to link his thing there. I couldn't pin it. Jen knows I can never fucking pin it on these things. But _ Brian Mackenzie, Power Speed Endurance, all of his stuff is in the bio there.
Yeah, you find everything on my bio. It's all good. Shanti, thank you very much for doing it. You got a great crowd. There's a lot of stuff going on there that's pretty cool.
Like, oh man, you guys listening, I've screen recorded this. I got the sound pulled. I will splice it together. I'll put it on YouTube at some point so this will live and you can go and watch it again. But I just wanted to bring him on. I love gadgets. Wanted to bring him on because I know you guys are going to start running. I know that you guys are a little bit panicking and anxiety perhaps ridden right now, and there's things that you can do, and it starts right here. Thank you, Brian. Anything else you want to say?
One other thing. If you guys really want to take this up another level, if you play with this, is our subscription model, which is, I think it's like $20 a month, but it's got the gear system involved in all the training. So here's the gears we're working on for everything and what you should be actually getting out of this. And following that, the responses that we get from our community on that is unbelievable. People are like, I cannot this has changed my life so much that I'm so aware of my breathing throughout the day. And that's what a breath practice is. It's just implement it in a place where it's going to affect you the rest of the day.
Dude, simple stuff here. You do it 20,000 times a day, the most fundamental movement pattern we have.
Yep.
Maybe we should look at it.
Maybe we should.
Brian, thank you so very much. Truly appreciate you. You guys on here, thank you. We know you could be doing anything. You chose to listen to us and hang out, so thank you. Please head on over to Brian's stories, his Instagram, his whatever, his handle, and ask him the questions. And
yeah, we're putting a bunch of cool stuff out this week, too, so track back if you want. I'm doing a bunch of really cool stuff that people can follow along with.
Perfect. Thank you again.
Thanks
and
again.
You guys, thank you. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.